There is so much weird stuff going on, though, and nothing weirder, in my opinion, than the second ruling from the Speaker of Parliament yesterday that he could not release a letter that did not meet the standards for invoking the party hopping legislation. So Mika Whaitiri somehow magically becomes an independent MP member of Te Pāti Māori, screws up the proportionality of Parliament, and there is nothing to see there. And the letter that could prove the proof or corruption of our Speaker in our Parliament, well, that just can't be released. Remarkable stuff, and it has a lot of people and a lot of experts scratching their heads. I imagine amongst them will be our next guest, Bryce Edwards, political lecturer at Vic Uni, head of the Democracy Project, and an all-round good guy. Bryce, welcome. Nice to have you back on, mate.
Hi, Sean. No, I'm not scratching my head on this one at all. It's pretty obvious we've got a stitch-up. It's in no one's interests amongst those involved for Mika Whaitiri to leave Parliament. She doesn't want to leave. Te Pāti Māori don't want her to leave. Labour don't want to sour relations with a potential coalition partner. The Speaker is doing his somersaults to make it all happen. So
that sounds corrupt, Bryce.
Well, Parliament is full of self-serving interests, and integrity is not really at the top of the list here, is it? It's the interests of two political forces and political power at stake here. So it's not principle here, no.
Bryce, can I give you my theory and you tell me if I'm whistling Dixie or might be hitting the nail on the head?
Oh, yes, always.
Okay, so Labour didn't know that Te Pāti Māori were going to nick her.
Nope.
But they did, and then they thought about it once they figured out they were nicking her and said, oh, that's not entirely bad for us.
Yep.
Because we're going to need them. If we're going to beat the Nats Act, maybe New Zealand first, we need the Māori Party on our side. So we don't want to piss them off, so let's let her go because she's not that effective anyway.
Yep. Entirely true.
She had written a letter of resignation that did go to the Speaker, and then John Tamahiri, head of the Māori Party, that might get her kicked out of Parliament. We might have done that wrong. So they run off to the Speaker and says, can we have that letter back, please? And we'll write you another one that kind of fudges it, because Labour have already told us that they're not going to invoke the party hopping legislation and everything will be fine. And the Speaker goes, yeah, have this letter back. I never saw that. I don't want to know about it again. And I'll just say that you didn't trigger the Electoral Integrity Act.
Oh, look, I think that absurd situation that you're putting forward is exactly what everyone's thinking. That's entirely what's happened. I can't see any other explanation for what's happened. We don't know exactly what letters have been delivered, but it's all totally... no one's fronting up with a better explanation than the one you've just given. So, that's entirely what's happened.
And, of course, it all could be cleared up if the letter was released. And, of course, the Māori Party could release the letter. And Mika Whaitiri could release the letter and restore some faith in themselves and our system of democracy, but they refuse to.
Well, it's not in the interests of any of those people to release that letter. It's going to be more damning for both Labour and Te Pāti Māori and Mika Whaitiri. So, no, it's not going to be released, and there's nothing that you and I can do about this.
Yeah.
Parliament isn't subject to the Official Information Act.
The Speaker can do as a lord of himself, basically, isn't he?
Oh, absolutely, and it's not transparent, and it does bring the Parliament into, further disrepute, really. But politicians don't worry so much about that when they've got bigger things at risk, like their livelihoods.
Bryce, the other big lie that was perpetrated yesterday from the Labour Party was, we don't want to invoke party hopping, which I must be said, they could still do. They could still insist that she has resigned.
Oh, yeah.
Right now, wouldn't have the Speaker. They could just say, she's resigned, we want to invoke party hopping. They're claiming, or Chris Hipkins was saying yesterday, we don't want to do that because we don't want a by-election. Well, that's a fib because there wouldn't be a by-election.